Hey guys, happy Friday and welcome back to another Makeup and Bad Movies. For the entire month of October, you know the spiel, we're doing horror and thriller and suspense movies and all that jazz. Last week we talked about Jason X, which was about a serial killer in space because that's something that we needed. That that movie is really funny because it just is proof of when you let a movie series go on for far too long. And I think that they should have maybe stopped about 4 movies ago. So if you want to check that out, it'll be linked up below. Linked up above, not below. Also, sorry if the lighting is like a little off. I'm filming this at 6:30 in the morning because what? Because I procrastinated. Anyway, also if you hear any meowing, that is my kitten. I got a kitten. That vlog should be up Monday. Vlog should be up soon. I don't think it'll be up yet. But I did get a kitten, so she's very young and very needy. And she's begging for my attention right now. Anyway, so this week we will be discussing Child's Play, the 2019 remake on a classic. I love Child's Play. Girl. I don't think it's my favorite horror movie, but it is one. It's up there for me. I really like that movie. I just feel like this movie is further proof that nobody needs remakes. We should just stop making remakes, and I'm really actually tired of it because this movie did not need to be made. Like, it's supposed to be a more modern reimagining of the story, and I'm not gonna lie, I am very tired of the robots uprising, robots being sentient or whatever the case may be and rising up against us. I just think that's such a tired storyline. I think that's such a 2000 storyline of when technology was still evolving and people were starting to get scared. Like, I'm just really not interested in that kind of storyline. There's a huge shadow, and there's nothing I can do about that. But what was I saying? Yeah, I'm just tired of that. Like, I don't think it's not new, and it's honestly not even that scary. Like, I don't know. I just don't think, for one, I really don't think it's possible for like robots to gain their own sense of thinking. That's something you have to program, and I just don't believe it. But also, I'm not like an engineer. I'm not in tech. I don't know. That could be very well possible, and it could happen, but I'm tired of it. And that's what this is about. A robot that somehow, because all its safety precautions were taking off, is allowed to learn how to be a serial killer. I don't know. The movie begins with an ad roll for this doll called Buddy. This is new technology, and it's just a very hideous version of the original Chucky doll. I'm not sure why anyone would give this to a child because it's terrifying. It's not a cute doll. But the doll is a smart doll. It can learn your routine, it talks to you, it connects with all Kazlan products. And Kazlan is like if Amazon was able to take over the world because they have TVs and vacuums and every smart product any product you could think of in your home that could be smart, Kazlan makes it. And they also have a car service. So if Amazon ever buys out Uber one day, we might be in trouble. The scene then cuts to a man in the factory where the Buddy dolls are made, and he is getting yelled at and berated by his manager, who then fires him. So the man then turns and takes off all the safety precautions on the Buddy doll that he is currently working on and packs it up and then commits suicide. I'm not sure why he had to commit suicide to do so. Like, he could have just fucked up the doll and then kept it moving on. So we then meet one of our main characters, who's played by Aubrey Plaza, Karen, and she is a single mother to a 12-year-old boy who is hearing impaired. They've just moved into a new apartment and they're getting settled in. And they have a very interesting relationship because honestly, until it was said in the movie, like a few minutes later, that was his mother, I was under the impression that was his sister. So they have a very like relaxed, comfortable relationship, if you will. Anyway, so they're trying to settle into this new place, and Karen urges Andy to go outside and talk to people and make friends. And instead of doing that, because that's obviously a very scary thing as a child, he just goes outside and sits on his phone. So Karen works at a superstore of some sort. It's called Zedmart. It's like a Walmart essentially. It's a big old store. And one day during her shift, somebody comes in. This girl needs to pee every 10 seconds. She learned how to use the litter box, and now she's in there every goddamn second. Hey, you heard me talking shit about you? So one day somebody comes in to return a Buddy doll, saying that it's defected, it has red eyes, it doesn't work properly. She then blackmails her manager into letting her take the doll home to her son, because she's just like, it's gonna get thrown out anyway, and now she can give this to her son as an early birthday present. Later that day, Andy comes home and he finds his mom and her boyfriend Shane in a kind of compromising situation. They're just making out, nothing too harmless, but we quickly learn that Andy does not care for Shane in the slightest, which makes sense because Shane is an asshole. You get asshole vibes from him the moment you see him on screen. And he proves himself later in the movie. So after he walks in on them, he just walks back out. He goes to sit in the hallway, and this is where he meets Mike. Mike is a detective whose mother lives down the hall from them, and he comes over to have dinner with her once a month. And they kind of chat or whatever before Andy's mom comes back out and gets him and tells him to come back inside, and then she has a surprise for him. This is where they open up the Buddy doll, and the doll names itself Chucky instead of the name that Andy picked for Han Solo, which is not supposed to do, and it becomes super attached to Andy. Did I mention the doll is hideous? It's really hard to look at. It's really hideous. Andy shows Chucky around, and we get to see a little bit more of like how he's defected and not all right because he curses, which a child's toy is obviously not supposed to do. And then that night, as Andy's trying to go to sleep, he starts singing this extremely creepy Buddy song. More than a buddy, you're my best friend. I love you more than you will ever know. Good night, Andy. I don't think it was meant to be creepy. I'm sure it was cute, but because Chucky is defected, it sounds terrifying. Andy complains to Chucky that he doesn't know what his mom sees in Shane. And then he says something along the lines of like, oh, he's just gonna leave just like everyone else. So there's clearly some hurt there going on from maybe his father, maybe past boyfriends or something. They never really get into it, but that's mentioned. We see Andy like quickly close a photo book on a picture of his mom, and some man. So he clearly has some kind of trauma with a male figure in his life. So they have some bonding time, and they're playing games and stuff like that, and Andy's really getting into the doll. And while one of those scenes is going on, the cat ends up scratching Andy in the most like dramatic way ever. Like they have like a knife slashing sound effect, just so you get the gist of the idea. And Chucky is like, kitty hurt Andy? Like he's like really taking it in, and he seems also really interested by the blood because for some reason a cat scratch managed to have him literally dripping blood. Andy goes to go get a Band-Aid. When he comes back, Chucky is choking the cat because it hurt Andy and he doesn't want anything to hurt. Andy is able to connect with two kids in his building. I don't remember their names, it's really not important. But these two kids quickly become his friends over the fact that his doll is defected and can curse and stuff like that. They then join him in his plan to use the doll to freak out Shane. They watch a horror movie together, and Chucky tries to emulate what he sees in the movie because they're laughing, they're happy. So he goes to the kitchen and he grabs a knife, and you know, he's copying what he saw in the movie. And when Andy's like, why would you do that? Da, 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 like, calm down. Chucky's like, I thought it would make you happy, which, I mean, it's simple psychology. So Andy then puts him away in the room after that. And I think it was the same day, next day, sometime later, Chucky replays a clip of Shane calling, or Andy calling Shane an asshole, which clearly upsets Shane because he is such a fragile ego. He very much gives me little dick man. Because this upset Shane, Karen ends up putting the toy away and tells Andy he can only use it for an hour in a day. So Chucky is watching them from inside the cover that he's now been placed in, and he hears Karen saying, like, you know, it freaks out Shane, it freaks out the cat, da da da. And he's of course taking this all in. When Andy arrives home the next day, he finds that Chucky has killed the cat, because when has a animal in a horror movie ever escaped with its life? Chucky killed the cat. Andy cleans it up, throws it all away, and tells his mom that Shane left the door open, so the cat must have gotten out. Later that night, as Andy's trying to sleep, Chucky replays sound bites of the cat crying, which, you know, this poor little boy, honestly, this is traumatizing, I'm not gonna lie. Chucky scares Shane again and replays another clip of Andy calling him an asshole, which then leads to Shane going to Andy's room and confronting a child, talking about, oh, if you have something to say, then you should say it to me. Stop using your doll to send your message. And he goes in there and terrifies the poor little boy. So when Shane walks out, Andy is like upset, clearly. He's like crying and everything. He says things like, oh, I just want him to leave us alone. Why can't he leave us alone? I want him gone. All things that Chucky is going to store in his little database. Karen is a terrible, terrible mother. Like, she does not care that her son is unhappy at all. Like, no, I don't think that she doesn't care, but like, she's not picking up for him, and she's letting this man walk all over her son as if he has anything to do with parenting. Because like, after the incident, she like pulls him aside. She does not come in the room, by the way, and stop it. So after the incident, she like pulls him aside, and she's like, this is, you know, he's my son. If you have an issue, you need to talk to me and I'll handle it. But like, it's very toothless. There's no backbone in it. It's very half-hearted. What she should have done is go in that room as soon as she heard the altercation, because it's a small apartment, okay? Go in that room, tell that man to get out of your son's face, because you do the parenting, not him. But no. If there's a problem, you need to tell me, and I'll tell him. Girl, goodbye. I need to fix that damn insecurity. Where about your son? Anyway, so we follow Shane back to his house, and surprise, surprise, he is married with 2 kids, because he absolutely, completely gives cheater vibes. Nothing is surprising about that. His wife asked him to take the Christmas lights down, which he complains about the whole time like a little bitch. And this is when Chucky, who followed him, who I think hopped in the back of his truck, knocks him off the ladder. He falls, he lands straight on his feet. It's disgusting the way he breaks his legs. And then sets a lawnmower up, probably a Casland lawnmower. And he sets a lawnmower up, and it comes and takes off his head and finishes the job. It's kind of gross. So the detective from down the hall, Mike, is the one who comes out to the crime scene, where they note that the prints fit the size of a toddler.
White got dead in a watermelon patch. Poetic.
How is that? I have a real big issue with the Black people in this movie. Sometimes I'm like, maybe I'm being a little sensitive, but also I'm just like, why did you write them this way? Like, we're gonna meet later this one kid. I'll get to it, but there's another character, and I was like, okay. Okay. So the next day, Andy awakens to find Shane's face on a watermelon. And he naturally freaks the fuck out. Chucky tells him, well, now we can play together. And that he'd do anything for his best buddy. He calls his 2 friends for help. They decide to wrap up the watermelon like a present in order to get out of the house. And when doing so, Andy's mom comes in, sees, he explains it as a present for the lady down the hall, Mike's mom. So she's like, oh, let's go together and deliver it. Andy, when he's there, he's like, don't open it till my birthday, we can open it together, you know, because clearly this is not something he wants. So Andy and his ragtag team come up with a plan to get rid of Chucky. Randy leads him into a room where his friends jump out from behind the door and hold him down to the ground. And Andy is supposed to like rip out his control center thing, but he hesitates when Chucky starts singing the Buddy song because this was he's clearly attached to the doll. Like this was his first friend here. I could understand that. So the girl then takes over and does it herself. They then throw Chucky out down the garbage chute where the handyman who works at the apartment finds him and boots him back up so he can sell him for resale. Chucky then brutally kills this man by having him fall onto like a saw thing. And the handyman also has cameras set up in everyone's apartment because he's a pervert. And this is where Chucky sees Andy having dinner with Dolores, I think that's her name, the mom, the black mom, and Mike. It's Dolores or like some other like stereotypical old black lady name, something like that. Dolores, Doreen. I want to say it's Dolores. But anyway, they're having dinner together, and Andy is explaining to Dolores about how to use the Casland car service. And in doing so, in this, she calls him her new best friend. And Chucky's gonna have a problem with that. So at dinner, Chucky uses this opportunity to get rid of the present and throw it down the garbage chute, which I cannot blame him for as a child for just thinking like, oh, I'll just throw it away, it's fine. He's a child. Chucky, newly reawakened, repackages himself and places himself outside of another kid's store, Omar. This is the black kid that I said I kind of had an issue with how they wrote him. He places himself outside of the door. So Omar is clearly excited about his new present or whatever, and he names his doll. So Chode, Omar's new buddy, walks up to Andy while they're together, like hanging out at Zedmart where his mom works. And he's like, are we best friends? And Andy's like, no, we're not, because he's traumatized from his buddy doll. And Andy kind of shrugs him off, and Chucky's like, Chode is like, if we can't be friends, then if I can't be your friend, then nobody can. And then he hacks into the TVs in the aisle and like plays clips of Shane yelling at Andy that one time, and then a clip of the face watermelon. Andy freaks out and he starts trying to like bash the doll's head in, and Omar comes up and like yells at him and says like, oh, you're jealous because my doll is normal, da da da, and they get into a fight. Andy tries to tell all of them that Chode is Chucky, but nobody believes him, clearly. So during all of this, Andy managed to get a hold of Omar's phone, and he uses this to log into the Buddy app, and like Andy sees Chucky go into the kitchen of Omar's house, grab a knife, and then follow Dolores out when she's getting into her first time using the Casland car service. Andy ends up getting into a fight with his mom about it because he's trying to explain to her like something's gonna happen to her. He's terrified, but his mom naturally doesn't believe him because who would believe that a doll has come alive and is trying to kill people? Chucky overrides the car because it is a Casland product, so assuming they run on all the same servers, and he causes a car accident. In which Dolores dies. Well, actually, he causes the car accident, but then like, as the final blow, the final move, he stabs her in the chest, and that's how she dies. Chucky makes his way back into Andy's apartment and begins playing a bunch of clips of like his friends and his mom talking about him. And he also says something about how if they don't let them play together, then they'll all have to go away. Andy begins freaking out and he starts smashing a bunch of things, including the TVs, completely bashes it in. His mom comes in at the end of this, gets upset and takes him to work with her. I guess to watch over him. I think you should perhaps look into getting your child some therapy, because he's clearly not right. But no, come to work with me. On the release nights of the Buddy 2 doll, which I'm clearly having issues with, the two friends have suspicion that Andy was right about the doll, so they make Omar give up his phone so they can see where the doll is, because Omar says that it's gone. They see that he is at Zedmart and that he is watching Andy. Mike goes to the Zedmart and he handcuffs Andy because he learns of the face wrapped up in a present. Some homeless man digs it up out of the garbage can, and when he sees that it's wrapped in the wrapping paper, he immediately recognizes the same thing that Andy gave to his mom. Then there's this whole thing where like he's arresting a child, and Karen's like, whoa, what's going on? What's going on? And he's like, I don't have to tell you shit. It's a minor. I'm pretty sure you have to say something. Like, he's a minor. You gotta say something to his mom. That's not how this works. Chucky slices a mascot's neck right as he's about to go out on stage and like perform. This then sends the whole crowd into a frenzy. Chaos is unleashed as several employees and customers are killed by Chucky and the Buddy dolls that he's taken over, while Chucky triggers the mall's lockdown sequence. Mike is wounded amid all of this, and Andy and his friends are able to escape, but when Andy realizes that Chucky has his mom, he kind of locks his friends out. There was a cart that was holding up one of the lockdown doors from going out, so he pulls a cart out and tells his friend, like, you know, this is my problem, this is my issue. So he goes off to deal with Chucky himself. A tussle ensues, typical horror movie fight scene, whatever. Andy stabs him in his core thing. But of course, you can never have a horror movie without a he's not really dead scene. So when Andy is walking away, Chucky comes flying at him with the knife. Mike manages to shoot him in the nick of time. Karen then gets up and rips off Chucky's head, saying, no one messes with my son, even though she let Shane mess with her son for the entirety of the movie, basically. Andy and his friends destroy Chucky's body and burn it in a nearby alleyway. In the aftermath of all this, Kazlan releases a statement about how they're recalling all the Chucky dolls just to be safe, even though they don't feel like it's his fault, typical business. As one of the dolls is placed into storage, his eyes flicker red and he smiles, revealing that Chucky transferred his artificial intelligence into a new host body. And that's the end of the movie. Honestly, it's just corny. Like I said in the beginning of the video, like I just think that the whole robots rising against the story needs to be put to bed. And for them to call this a modern reimagining, it's not modern, because we had all these movies in the early 2000s. We're past that. Come up with something else. I just don't like remakes, I'm not gonna lie. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. If there's any movie you want me to watch, be sure to leave it down below in the comments, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.